All right, let's dive right into it. Preseason might not count in the standings, but every snap, every rep, every concept thrown on that field is packed with meaning, especially for a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers that's trying to reshape its offensive identity under Arthur Smith. Saturday night's matchup against the Buccaneers ended with a narrow 3-point loss. But like always in August, the scoreboard isn't what matters. What does matter is what's starting to take shape beneath the surface. And one particular play from that game stood out in a big way. It didn't just show up on the film, it jumped off the screen. It told a story about where this offense might be heading in 2025. Not just next week, not just in week 1, but long term. So let's rewind. We're in the first half, Steelers offense on the field, Skylar Thompson at quarterback. The formation is compact, condensed, what you call a 2-by-2 even, with 2 receivers split on either side. They're lined up in 12 personnel. That means 1 running back, 2 tight ends. That gives you a lot of flexibility. You can motion into different looks, disguise intentions, and most importantly, keep the defense guessing. In this particular play, Connor Hayward gets motioned across the formation, setting the whole thing up. Now here's the beauty of it. What Pittsburgh dials up here is a direct lift from the Kyle Shanahan playbook. We're talking about a variation of the burner concept, which is a staple in play action-heavy schemes that want to stretch the defense horizontally and vertically at the same time. And even though it's an old-school concept that's been around for years, this one still works like a charm when executed properly. And that's exactly what happened. Let's break it down. At the top of the formation, you've got Scotty Miller. Down at the bottom, it's Roman Wilson, the rookie out of Michigan who's trying to carve out his spot after missing all of last season. When the ball is snapped, Miller takes off on what looks like a deep pylon route. He stems inside at first. Nothing too dramatic, but enough to keep leverage on the corner. And that's important because when you're attacking a zone-heavy defense like the Buccaneers were running here, particularly a cover 4 look, you want to control the depth and eyes of those safeties. What Miller does is perfect. He forces the defense to honor his vertical route, making the deep safety and corner react. They have to drop. They have to respect the vertical threat. Meanwhile, Roman Wilson is running what looks like a basic deep crosser underneath. Simple, right? But the timing and execution are what make this play sing. It's not just a route. It's part of a larger narrative. With play action holding the linebackers down low and Miller pulling 2 defenders upfield, that leaves the intermediate area wide open. That's where Roman slices across the field. And this is where his traits start to shine. He's got that 4.39 speed, and you can see it. He doesn't round off the break lazily. He doesn't tip it. He just goes straight at the defender. Then, bam, snaps it across and keeps the wheels turning. The timing's crucial. Off the play fake, the linebackers step up like they're supposed to. They bite. That's textbook play-action effectiveness. By the time Thompson hits the top of his drop, Roman is already flashing across the middle, and there's a wide-open window. Now, ideally, you want the quarterback to let it rip immediately, but Thompson hitches just slightly, and by the time the ball's out, Wilson is closer to the sideline than you'd like. That limits the run-after-catch potential. Still, he makes the grab, stays in bounds, and moves the chains. What we saw here is exactly the kind of football Arthur Smith has been trying to install. This is the stuff he did back in Tennessee when he had Ryan Tannehill playing efficient ball, working off play action, and hitting these middle-of-the-field concepts. Last year in Atlanta, we saw flashes, but not much consistency. Why? The quarterbacks. Whether it was Russell Wilson not wanting to throw over the middle or Justin Fields struggling to read and react quickly in that area, Smith didn't have the trigger man to make these concepts viable. But when you do have the quarterback willing to hit those intermediate routes in stride, especially against zones, that's where the magic happens. And look, the defensive reaction on this play wasn't exactly stellar. You got 4 guys back there covering essentially 1 route. It's poor spacing, poor recognition. But that's not the Steelers' problem. That's on Tampa Bay. What Pittsburgh did was draw it upright, execute it, and show that, yes, this concept is in the playbook. Even if it's preseason, even if it's a small sample. That tells us something. Because remember, coaches do not put everything out there in the preseason. It's a stripped-down, vanilla version of the offense. But the fact that this concept made it onto the call sheet, That means something. This isn't your generic bootleg to the flat with a shallow drag coming across. This is designed to attack the heart of the defense. And that's where Arthur Smith wants to live, especially when he's got weapons like Wilson who can separate, catch in stride, and maybe make a move after the catch. Now, I talked about this being a play straight from the Shanahan tree, and that's no accident. Arthur Smith might have his own playbook, but it's heavily influenced by the modern West Coast zone-based offenses we see in San Francisco, in LA, in Miami. It's all about marrying the run and pass, creating hesitation in the defense, and then punishing that hesitation with layered route concepts. The high cross, the dig, the deep pylon. These are the routes that get a defense when the linebackers bite and the safeties get pulled too deep or too wide. And speaking of Wilson, this is exactly the kind of rep he needed. He's not some unknown rookie anymore. He's a second-year player with expectations. The Steelers spent a third-round pick on this guy. That's significant draft capital for a wideout, especially one who is more of a projection than a polished product coming out of college. But what he was in Michigan was a burner who could win in space. He wasn't some contested catch monster or a route technician against press coverage. He was a mover, a glider, a guy who, if schemed open, could turn on the jets and find daylight. That's why this play matters. It's not just about Arthur Smith. It's about how the pieces are beginning to fit together. Roman Wilson's skill set matches what this offense is trying to do. And when those things align, scheme and skill, you've got the beginning of something. Now, Wilson still has to stay healthy. He's got to stack good reps, but the early signs are promising. Plays like this give the coaching staff confidence to dial up more of the same. And when that happens, defenses have to account for it. You cannot sit in static zones and expect these play-action crossers not to torch you. You either give up the chunk yards or you start cheating, and then you open up the shot plays over the top. Skylar Thompson deserves credit here too. He didn't have to do anything spectacular. He just had to execute. Set the fake, hit the drop, find the crosser, and deliver. Again, a cleaner release would have been ideal, but he made the throw. And that's what this offense wants, consistent execution, not hero ball. That's the core of Arthur Smith's philosophy. Control the game, control the clock, move the chains, and when the defense starts creeping in, that's when you hit him deep. And look, we're not going to pretend like this was some revolutionary play. It wasn't. It's been run 1,000 times in 1,000 offenses. But it's new here. It's new in this version of the Steelers. And that's what matters. Because this franchise has been searching for offensive rhythm for a while now. It's been too much static, too much run, pass, too much guessing. But what this play shows is a glimpse of rhythm, of identity, of something being built. There's more too. The concept itself, the burner, is one that has multiple variations. You've got the pylon crosser look we saw here. But you've also got other wrinkles like rage, where the outside receiver fakes the pylon and turns it into a post. Or rider, where he stems inside on a go route. All of these are designed to do the same thing. Clear space for the crosser, manipulate the safeties, and punish zone drops. And Arthur Smith knows them all. He's not just copying Shanahan. He's evolving it to fit his guys. And the thing is, we're going to see more of this. I bet on it. Not just this specific concept, but the overall approach, play action, layered route designs, attacking the middle. That's where this offense is headed. And the more guys like Wilson get involved, the more dangerous it becomes. Because now you're not just relying on George Pickens or hoping Pat Freiermuth gets open underneath. You got layers. You got diversity. And that's how modern offenses win. Let's be clear, though. This wasn't a flawless play. The timing could have been sharper. The throw could have been earlier. And honestly, the defense bailed them out a bit. But for a preseason rep, for a look at what's possible, this was huge. You don't need to see 50 reps of this to know it's in the toolbox. You just need to see that it's there and that the guys running it know what they're doing. We'll see how it all plays out. There's a quick turnaround coming with Carolina next and more reps to evaluate. But this was a big step, a clear window into what Arthur Smith wants this offense to be and how players like Roman Wilson are going to be part of that blueprint. Now here's where things really start to get interesting. Because it's not just about that one throw or even that single concept. It's about what it represents. What that play shows us is that the Steelers' offense is finally starting to inch toward modernity, toward the kind of layered, cohesive identity that's been sorely missing in recent seasons. And when you peel back the layers, when you look at the details beyond the highlight, you realize this wasn't just a lucky rep. It was intentional. It was structured. It was rehearsed. And most of all, it fit. Let's talk about the layers. You've got pre-snap motion. You've got formation versatility. You've got a condensed split, which is something the Shanahan offense is known for. It forces defenses to communicate, to rotate their coverages post-snap, to make decisions in real time. That alone can create hesitation. And hesitation in football is everything. One half step too slow and the window's open. One wrong read and your defense is out-leveraged. What Pittsburgh did here was force the Buccaneers to think and then punish them for it. That's not just good offense. That's smart football. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. This is Arthur Smith starting to put his fingerprints all over this offense. Last season, the Steelers' offense was static. Too many snaps with no motion. Too many formations that screamed what was coming. Too much reliance on hero ball down the sidelines. It was an offense that didn't play on schedule, didn't use tempo, didn't stress the middle of the field. But that's not how Smith coaches. That's not what his playbook looks like when it's running properly. What we saw on that play, with the crosser and the deep pylon and the play-action fake, that's the beginning of something real. Now, we're not saying this play by itself is going to fix the offense, but it's a signal, a breadcrumb. It tells us what they've been working on behind the scenes. It tells us what they want this offense to look like by the time we hit mid-season. And perhaps most importantly, it tells us which players are going to be leaned on to make it happen. Roman Wilson is at the center of that. Because in Smith's system, it's not about having 3 all-pro receivers who can win one-on-one on the outside every time. It's about guys who can run with precision, who understand space, who know how to make a defender turn his hips the wrong way. That's Wilson. And yes, you could say the Buccaneers' defense didn't play it well. That's fair. For defenders on the back and dropping with no purpose, no coordination. The linebackers biting too hard. The safety too deep. The cornerback playing without leverage. All of it contributed, but none of that diminishes what the Steelers did. In fact, that's kind of the point. This concept is designed to create that exact kind of confusion. It's not about beating a perfect defense. It's about making even decent defenses look bad. Let's also circle back to Skylar Thompson for a minute. He's not expected to be a starter. He's in there to run the system, get reps, get the ball out, and show he can manage the game. But on this play, even with the minor hesitation before the throw, you saw his understanding of the read progression. First read, Scotty Miller on the pylon. It's covered. You move to number 2, Roman Wilson crossing the middle. He's open. If that's taken away, then it's the check down underneath. Easy, safe, move on to second down. That's exactly how the play is supposed to work. That's what Smith wants. He doesn't need magic on every play. He needs process, structure, a quarterback who knows the order and trusts it. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news. And the buzz around Pittsburgh has taken on a life of its own after whispers from within the Steelers organization began circulating this week, suggesting that head coach Mike Tomlin finally lost his patience with one of his players and may have uttered the words that no professional athlete ever wants to hear. He doesn't play with me anymore. Reports remain unconfirmed, but insiders close to the locker room insist that the situation has been brewing for some time, pointing to subtle tension during practices and small but telling interactions during recent games. While Tomlin has always prided himself on being a player's coach, known for his loyalty and his ability to connect with personalities of every type, the current climate suggests that even his tolerance has limits. In Pittsburgh, a city where the Steelers are more than just a football team, but part of the very identity of the community, any perceived rift between a respected coach and a member of the roster creates shockwaves. Speculation has been rampant on talk radio and across online forums, with fans dissecting every moment from the sidelines and debating which player might have crossed the invisible line that caused Tomlin to reach a breaking point. What makes this rumor particularly gripping is the way it contrasts with Tomlin's reputation for measured responses and public composure. even under the most intense scrutiny. He has navigated contract disputes, star players demanding trades, and heated sideline arguments without ever letting personal frustrations become a story. Yet the notion that Tomlin himself would allegedly call time on a player's future under his watch suggests a deeper, more personal rupture that extends beyond the typical coach-player disagreements. Some speculate that this outburst, if it truly happened, could stem from a string of disciplinary issues or a pattern of disregard for team culture, something Tomlin has always protected with vigilance. Others wonder whether it was the result of a singular explosive incident in practice, one so severe that the coach's authority demanded an uncompromising response. In Pittsburgh circles, people are remembering past controversies involving players whose talent was overshadowed by off-field distractions, and they are beginning to draw parallels. For Tomlin to reportedly say a player will never again suit up under him, the assumption is that the offense was not minor, but monumental, sparking debates about where the team goes from here and what this means for the locker room's fragile balance. The identity of the player at the heart of this alleged fallout remains the greatest mystery, fueling endless debates across social media platforms and fan podcasts. Some point toward high-profile stars who have carried both the team's hopes and their fair share of controversy in the past, suggesting that a single outburst may have reopened old wounds. Others insist that it could be a role player, someone not often in the spotlight, but whose behavior behind closed doors finally wore down the coach's patience. Without confirmation, the narrative remains open to interpretation, and each theory seems more dramatic than the last. Regardless of who the player might be, the central theme is that Tomlin's authority, normally unquestioned and revered, has been tested in a way that could set a precedent for how the Steelers manage discipline moving forward. If indeed a line has been crossed, fans are wondering whether Tomlin's statement is final or if cooler heads will prevail over time. The larger question is whether this rumored ultimatum marks a turning point in Tomlin's leadership style, a harder edge from a coach who has long balanced discipline with empathy, but who now appears, at least in whispers, to have reached a definitive breaking point. This development has created a new layer of uncertainty for a team already under scrutiny as it seeks to reestablish itself among the AFC's elite contenders. The Steelers have been trying to navigate a competitive division where every slip can define the trajectory of a season, and distractions of this magnitude often ripple far beyond the individual involved. A fractured relationship between coach and player can quickly erode locker room trust, especially if other members of the team feel caught between loyalty to a teammate and respect for the coach's authority. The organization itself now finds itself at a crossroads. Should the rumor prove accurate, management may be forced to choose between backing Tomlin's hardline or attempting to smooth tensions with the player in question. Neither option comes without risk, and the team's leadership knows that fan perception will play a significant role in shaping the narrative. In Pittsburgh, football is as much about culture as it is about wins, and the image of solidarity has long been a pillar of the franchise. A public split, even if rooted in a private disagreement, threatens to challenge that identity and raise difficult questions about what values ultimately drive decisions within the Steelers' hierarchy. For now, the story remains a swirling mix of rumor, speculation, and anxious anticipation, with every whisper magnified under the bright spotlight of Pittsburgh's football obsession. Until someone within the organization steps forward with clarity, the situation will continue to fuel endless conversation among fans, analysts, and even rival teams eager to exploit any hint of turmoil. What is clear, however, is that Mike Tomlin's supposed words, if indeed they were spoken, have struck a nerve precisely because they sound so uncharacteristic. A coach who has built a career on composure and stability is now at the center of a storm fueled by the possibility that even he has limits. Whether this moment becomes a footnote in the season or a defining turning point will depend on how the coming weeks unfold, both on the field and in the meeting rooms where relationships are tested and reputations are forged. For a city that thrives on its team's resilience, this rumor embodies both fear and fascination. Fear that cracks may be forming within the Steelers' foundation, and fascination with the drama of watching how one of the league's most respected coaches responds when pushed to his breaking point. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.